out on Arirang News. North Korea fires 2 ballistic missiles toward the EC in protest against the joint live-fire exercise by South Korea and the U.S. It's the regime's first launch of ballistic missiles in 63 days. President Yoon supervises the final day of the biggest live-fire exercise ever by the ROK-U.S. joint forces. There, he stressed that real peace comes from defending the nation with its own strength. The South Korean government says the amount of tritium coming out from Japan's planned discharge of water from the crippled Fukushima nuclear power plant won't be of significant risk to human health. This comes during its launch of weekday briefings on this matter. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. North Korea has escalated tensions on the peninsula by launching 2 short-range ballistic missiles toward the EC between 7:25 p.m. to 7:37 p.m. This from South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff Thursday evening. It's Pyongyang's first notable provocation in 15 days, coming in the wake of a failed attempt to launch a spy satellite, and it is its first ballistic missile test in more than 2 months. The launch is seemingly a reaction to the joint live-fire annihilation drills conducted by the Republic of Korea and the United States. North Korea had already displayed outrage over these exercises earlier on Thursday. In a public statement issued earlier on Thursday by North Korea's state-run media outlet, Korean Central News Agency, the regime's defense ministry labeled the exercises as provocative and irresponsible and offered a warning. They promised a comprehensive response to any form of protest or provocation that it perceives to be from an adversary. The biggest live-fire exercise by ROK-U.S. joint forces started late last month amid heightened tensions on the peninsula. Today was the last day of the exercise, and to wrap it up, the nation's commander-in-chief, President Yoon, was in charge. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
Just 30 kilometers from the demilitarized zone in Pocheon, Gyeonggi-do province on Thursday, President Yoon amplified his strong message toward North Korea with fighter jets, tanks, and artillery as he himself supervised the last day of the ROK-U.S. annihilation live-fire exercise, the largest ever by the 2 allies' joint forces.
적의 선의에 의존하는 가짜 평화가 아닌 우리의 힘으로 국가 안보를 지키는 것이 진정한 평화입니다. 우리 정부는 확고한 안보 태세와 실전적 훈련으로 나라를 굳건히 수호하고 국민의 생명과 안전을 지킬 것입니다.
The 3-week exercise, resumed after a 6-year hiatus, is back bigger than ever and coincides with the 70th anniversary of the ROK-U.S. alliance. 610 weapons, 71 units, and 2,500 soldiers were involved, including South Korean F-35 fighters and K-9 self-propelled howitzers, as well as U.S. F-16 jets and Gray Eagle drones. Watching the exercise were around 2,000 spectators, which included lawmakers, ROK and U.S. military personnel, and the newly created Military Innovation Committee. Military officials from a number of countries, including those from Russia and China, were also among those watching, making this a chance to advertise South Korean-developed weapons. The drills were done in stages, starting off with precise attacks against North Korea's nuclear and missile threats, to winning the ground by soldiers with air and artillery support. President Yoon praised the soldiers involved and showed his gratitude.
이 자리에는 훈련에 참가하기 위해 신혼여행을 미룬 장교, 전역을 1개월 이상 연기한 병사, 6.25 전쟁 참전 용사의 손자인 미군 장병들이 함께 자리하고 있습니다.
He also spent time reviewing the weapons used from armored vehicles to missile defense systems such as the Cheongu. Meanwhile, the historical exercise comes as North Korea has heightened tensions in the past year, and since the exercise kicked off 3 weeks ago, it has also criticized the scale of the exercise while attempting to launch a military spy satellite, which it failed. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News, Pocheon.
South Korea's National Security Office Director Cho Tae-yong on Thursday in Tokyo convened a trilateral meeting with his American and Japanese counterparts, Jake Sullivan and Akiba Takeo. The trio talked about measures to enhance regional security and address the challenges presented by North Korea's provocations. Cho had on Wednesday also engaged in one-on-one with Takeo, centered on the renewed relations between Seoul and Tokyo, with a mutual commitment expressed towards fostering further security cooperation. In addition, the South Korean official raised the pressing issue of the contaminated water from the Fukushima nuclear disaster, calling on Japan to maintain absolute transparency at every stage. Cho underscored the significance of this issue, emphasizing its impact on the health and safety of South Korean nationals. According to Cho's statement on Thursday, his Japanese counterpart responded affirmatively to his concerns, setting the stage for potential progress. Amid public concerns regarding Japan's planned discharge of Fukushima water, the Korean government has took a step forward and begun its daily briefing. Their first presser on this matter centered on the overall situation, monitoring, and safety measures. Our political correspondent Han Sung-woo has more.
According to a nuclear expert from a South Korean pan-ministry government task force, the concentration levels of tritium to be released once Japan discharges radioactive wastewater from its crippled Fukushima nuclear power plant are not expected to pose any risks to human health.
Even taking uncertainties into account, it's unrealistic to think that the tritium released from the marine tunnel will fall within a range that could impact our health.
Professor Ha explained that the amount of exposure to radiation from the tritium is incomparably lower than that from a medical X-ray. This came during South Korea's launch on Thursday of daily weekday briefings on Japan's plans to start releasing the contaminated water into the Pacific Ocean this summer. The aim? To relieve public concerns and prevent the spread of inaccurate information adding to those concerns. The Office for Government Policy Coordination told reporters during the presser that the government will be closely monitoring Japan's test run of its discharge facilities and provide explanations should any unusual occurrences arise.
The test run that began on Monday is not a trial of all the wastewater discharge equipment, but rather a trial of several components, such as the marine tunnel and various pipes.
First Vice Minister of the office, Park Gu-yeon, added that the Korean team of experts that returned from on-site inspections last month is carefully analyzing related data it has procured from Japan, particularly on its custom multi-nuclide removal system known as the Advanced Liquid Processing System. His words came before the Fisheries Ministry, citing the results of the government's radioactivity monitoring so far, stressed there had been no significant changes in concentration levels in Korea's coastal waters following the Fukushima nuclear disaster, and that Korea's fishery products are safe to consume.
In other words, the radioactive releases from the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster did not have a meaningful effect on our waters. Korea's seas are safe.
Meanwhile, in Parliament, the head of South Korea's inspection team, Yoo Guk-hee, told lawmakers at the National Policy Committee that the experts are speeding up their analyses to reach a final conclusion on whether the wastewater is truly safe before it is released. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
Over in the U.S., the Federal Reserve has announced to hold its key interest rate steady for the first time in more than a year. But with the Fed also signaled possible additional rate increases before the end of the year to fight inflation. Moon Hae-ryun reports.
The U.S. central bank has kept its interest rates unchanged for the first time in 15 months, but says more rate hikes are likely before the end of the year. Following the Federal Monetary Open Committee's two-day meeting, it issued a unanimous statement on Wednesday that rate hikes would be paused at the 5 to 5.25% range while the economic situation is assessed. This freeze follows 10 consecutive rate hikes as the Fed aggressively responded to the worst inflation the United States has seen in 40 years.
Looking ahead, nearly all committee participants view it as likely that some further rate increases will be appropriate this year to bring inflation down to 2% over time.
Fed officials say that further hikes are likely to bring interest rates to the 5.5 to 5.75% range before the end of 2023. Despite more rate increases, Fed officials cast a more optimistic view of the economy, but say curbing inflation takes longer in a robust economy. The economic growth outlook for this year more than doubled to 1%, up from 0.4%, while the unemployment rate is projected to rise to 4.1%, which is lower than March's estimate of 4.5%. In May, the consumer price index climbed 4% on year, which was the lowest annual rise in over 2 years. However, excluding volatile food and energy prices, the core inflation rate remained well above the Fed's target of 2%.
So I think if you look at core PCE inflation overall, look at it over the last 6 months, you're just not seeing a lot of progress. It's running at a level of, over 4.5%, far above our target, and not really, moving down.
Personal consumption expenditure, which measures price changes of consumer goods and services, rose 4.4% on year in April. The Fed's earlier prediction back in March that PCE would see an on-year rise of 3.6% at the end of the year has been raised to 3.9% in reflection of the latest data. U.S. stocks pinballed following the announcement, with investors bracing for another interest hike later this year. 문혜련, Arirang News.
Following the U.S. Fed signaling additional rate hikes within this year, many are wondering what the Bank of Korea's next step will be in terms of the rate gap that could widen even more. Lee Dae-yeon explains.
Concerns are rising as the interest rate difference between South Korea and the U.S. may expand as the U.S. signaled more increases later this year. With the Fed's decision to keep the base rate unchanged for now, the rate difference stays at 1.75 percentage points, an all-time high gap. However, with Fed officials revealing that rate hikes totaling 0.5 percentage points between now and the end of the year, the gap is expected to surpass 2 percentage points, even up to 2.25 percentage points, if South Korea's central bank continues to freeze the rate. This could spell crisis for South Korea, with a weaker won against the U.S. dollar possible and with foreign capital outflow. Now it's up to the Bank of Korea to focus on taming anxiety by freezing the rate or increasing the base rate to prevent any uncertainties resulting from an exchange rate crisis. The head of the Bank of Korea, Lee Chang-yong, said previously that Korea will not mechanically respond to a rate difference, adding that more rate hikes may come in the near future. However, economic conditions in South Korea are making it difficult to raise base rates. The GDP growth rate in the first quarter of this year barely avoided a negative figure, while the trade deficit has been in the red for the 15 straight months. The BOK also already lowered its economic growth outlook from 1.6% to 1.4% amid China's weaker-than-expected reopening and the sluggish recovery of the chip sector. Meanwhile, South Korea's Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho said during a meeting on Thursday that a rate freeze by the Fed was already expected by the market and the government.
Uncertainties remain as to how major countries will decide on their monetary policies. The government will keep watching for any uncertainties and closely monitor the market and strengthen the management of vulnerable sectors.
During the meeting, Chu also pledged to thoroughly manage the potential risk of project financing in real estate, as more rate hikes could trigger a crisis for non-banking financial companies as well as a complete financial crisis. He said related institutes are cooperating to monitor project financing firms around the clock. Lee Dae-yeon, Arirang News.
A special bank savings program designed for young people here in Korea opened today and drew tens of thousands of applications on its first day. It's offering a savings account with a maximum annual percentage yield of 6%. Lee Soo-jin has the details.
A much-anticipated South Korean government-backed bank savings program first announced in March this year to help youths gain economic stability is now open. According to the Financial Services Commission, 11 banks, including Nonghyup, Shinhan, Uri, and Hana, began accepting applications for the Youth Leap account at 9 a.m. Thursday. The nation's top financial regulators says that the program received around 34,000 applications in just 3 hours after its launch. With the Youth Leap account, users can save up to 50 million won, or around $39,000 over the course of 5 years, with a maximum deposit of 700,000 won per month. The government will make contributions depending on the amount deposited and the account holder's personal income. Those contributions could be as much as 24,000 won per month, while the interest gained is tax-free. All 11 banks said Wednesday they would offer a maximum annual deposit interest rate of 6%, including fixed base rates and preferential interest rates. Those aged between 19 and 34 with a total annual income of 60 million won or less and a household income below 180% of the median income are eligible. For two-person households, the monthly income must be 6.22 million won or below. For three-person households, income is capped at 7.98 million won. Foreign nationals living in Korea that meet the requirements can also register and receive tax-free interest income, but will not be able to receive government contributions. Those eligible can apply through their banking apps between 9 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. 이수진, Arirang News.
South Korea has decided to remove tax cut measures on car purchases starting next month. The decision comes amid growing concerns over the government's tax revenue, which has seen a contraction this year. Our business correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
Starting July, consumers have to pay more when purchasing cars. It's because Seoul's Finance Ministry decided to terminate a policy which lowered the tax on passenger vehicles from 5% to 3.5% to ramp up domestic consumption. The robust car industry and improved consumption were among the reasons given for ending the tax cut. However, the main reason is rising concern over national tax revenue, as it may fall short of its estimate this year. The country's tax revenue in the first 4 months of this year dropped by over $26 billion compared to a year earlier. Meanwhile, a day before the minister's announcement, the National Tax Service said that it will slash the consumption tax base by 18% for domestic cars to mitigate the impact of higher taxes on cars produced at home. Under the two policies, a consumer will pay about $280 more than before when buying a car that has a factory price of roughly $32,800. However, experts say that tax on car purchases contributes little to overall tax revenue.
The tax cut for car purchases reduces the country's overall tax revenue by 1.3 trillion won or $1 billion. This means that while the termination of the tax cut helps to raise tax revenue to some extent, it's still not enough to replenish the overall tax revenue shortfall.
Income tax accounts for the largest share of the total tax revenue, followed by corporate tax. These taxes are expected to continue to decline amid a gloomy outlook for South Korea's economy. The government's latest decision on car tax cuts is seen as a signal that other temporary tax benefits, including fuel tax cuts, are set to end.
All the temporary tax cut measures have an expiration date. Regarding the matter, we plan to assess the status of tax revenue, economic conditions, and the tax burden on individuals in order to make comprehensive decisions on each policy as the time approaches.
The government also plans to move forward according to this year's initial budget by utilizing surplus money from the previous year as well as other reserve funds. Meanwhile, issuing deficit financing bonds and cutting down government expenses have been brought up as possible measures to fill the tax revenue shortfall. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
Major label executives of SM and HYBE have made it onto this year's Indie Power Players list by Billboard. The list is comprised of those driving the growing success of the music industry across every genre. According to the latest list released on Monday, SM Entertainment's Lee Sung-soo and Ta Kyung-jun were named for the second year in a row. Billboard said SM's girl group aespa had the highest first-day sales for a K-pop girl group with its new album, My World. HYBE-affiliated Big Hit Music's Shin Young-jae and Source Music's So Sung-jin were also named. This is the third year for Shin to make it onto the list. Billboard highlighted the solo activities of the members of BTS despite the group's hiatus. It also praised the latest achievements by Source Music's girl group, LE SSERAFIM. You might have been seen and heard of works by iconic Spanish artist Salvador Dali and architect Antoni Gaudí. But what if their masterpieces are reborn with light, sound, and digital technology? Join our very own Shin Se-byuk for a sneak peek.
At the signal of Salvador Dali bursting out of an egg, the show commences. Soon after, the Spanish artist's surrealistic masterpieces project themselves onto every surface, enveloping every inch of the hall. Welcome to the realm of Dali's mind, where his artwork comes alive.
This exhibition, Fear of Light, features various artworks by renowned artists Salvador Dali and Antoni Gaudí. And as the name of the exhibition says, it utilizes lights and sound for an enhanced immersive experience.
After the highly acclaimed inaugural edition, Bunker of Light, in 2018, the Light Immersive Art Exhibition series in South Korea has made its comeback. Through cutting-edge sound and video technology, visitors are transported into the subconscious minds of Dali and Gaudí. Unlike conventional art exhibitions, visitors can enjoy the experience while seated with visual delights in every direction. The first part of the show, Dali, The Endless Enigma, features 12 sequences incorporating Dali's paintings, photographs, videos, and more. From the coastal village of Catalonia to his collaboration with Walt Disney, Dali's imagination and inspiration come to life. The second part, Gaudí, the Architect of the Imagination, presents the fruit of Catalan architect Antoni Gaudí's mind. There, visitors can marvel at the spectacle of twinkling lights reflecting from a rose window and beautifully decorated tiles at the Sagrada Familia. The exhibition's organizers said combining digital technology with artwork opens up fresh and unique interpretations for viewers.
Here, visitors can freely explore, even dance and move to the music. Regardless of where you're standing, you'll experience being at the core of artistic expression.
He also hinted at a third Light series in South Korea in the future, this time featuring Korean artists for the first time. The Theater of Light exhibition will run until March 3rd, 2024. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
A prized piece of Buddhist scripture nearly 700 years old has been returned to home to Korea. Known as the 묘법 연화경, or in English, the Mystic Law of the Sutra Lotus Volume 6, this hand-inked scripture spans an impressive 10 meters. Once believed to be irretrievably lost to history, the scripture emerged from obscurity when a Japanese custodian expressed the desire to sell it to the Overseas Korean Cultural Heritage Foundation. Thanks to the determined efforts of the Cultural Heritage Administration, this invaluable national treasure has been safeguarded and successfully repatriated to Korea.
The nation will see some lingering showers for the remainder of the night. In the regions, we'll see 5 to 40 millimeters of rainfall coming and going. When the rain tapers off overnight, sweltering temperatures are in store nationwide. Hot spells will be persistent for the remainder of the week. Taking frequent water breaks will be recommended for the next few days. Readings will be on a rising trend from this point on. This weekend will be especially hot with temperatures exceeding the seasonal average by about 3 to 4 degrees. By Sunday, daytime highs in Seoul will be topping out at 32 degrees Celsius. More baking hot temperatures will prevail for eastern regions such as Chuncheon. Morning temperatures tomorrow will be about 1 to 3 degrees higher than today. Seoul and Daegu will be starting off at 19 degrees. Clear skies will dominate for the daytime. Seoul will get up to 29, Daejeon 31. Gwangju and Gyeongju will be hot at 32 degrees. Conditions will be sweltering in Seoul until early next week. It's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all for this Thursday night newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest news. Have a lovely night.
Global leader of eco-friendly future materials. Green tomorrow with POSCO.